So there's many great things that really stick out for being a maritimer. Strange weather, strange drivers on the highway, you know, the many versions of English and French we speak in Quebec and the maritime provinces. What really stands out for me is a snack cake company that really changed the rules in the 20th and into the 21st century on how good a very simple product can be and be part of the mainstream of this nation. Of course, we're talking about Vachon or Vachon Cakes, probably the sweetest treat that Canadians have ever experienced. And most people the rest of the world have never, and that's their loss. Now, they've been around close to 100 years, and they're most well known for their JosLouis cakes, which is kind of a cream-filled chocolate moon pie, but it's better than a moon pie because it's bigger and more flaky, no pun intended. They're caramel little mini cakes. The May West, which is chocolate-filled white cake with the white middle frosting. The flakies, all the different brands. Now we have to go back 97 years to let's say rural Quebec, but a small region of Quebec. In 1923, after working on their farm for 25 years, the the matriarch and patriarch of the family, Joseph Akkad de Vachon and Rose Anna Giroux, borrowed $7,000. Now, $7,000 back in the day, big money, probably 100,000 now, to purchase the Leblot Bakery in Saint Marie de Beauce, Quebec, where they began by making bread, brioche, and pastries. Now, Rosanna convinced Joseph to buy the business to encourage their children to return to Quebec from the States where they had gone and in search of work. So it was motivated by the economics of the pre-depression economics of the time. Now, by 1924, 1 year later, with several family members working in the kitchen, and they were doing deliveries too, which is great. Uh, they were called J. Vachon and Fils, became a true family business. Now, by the 1930s, the legacy of Vachon started to build a bill in Quebec, and the infamous Joy Louis cake was created. Like I said, the chocolate kind of moon pie style or mini cake with the white tasty frosting inside. Now, it was not named after the boxer Joe Louis. A lot of people are confused because Joe Louis, wasn't really that well known across Canada. It was actually named after the Vachon sons Joseph and Louis, so Joe Louis. Now, it was one of the first major companies to have its own motorized delivery service. Now, by 1936, the expansion of in Quebec had become quite strong, and they were pretty well from Chicoutimi to Val d'Or, which is a big region of Quebec, and nearly all of Quebec were enjoying the product. Now, by 1937, this is where New Brunswick comes in. Vachon expanded its territory to include markets in Ontario and the Maritimes, and we're talking the Maritimes started with northern New Brunswick, Gaspé Coast region, and from there it really really expanded. It was showing up in grocery stores, showing up at variety stores at the time. You could buy it at the local 5 and 10 store, mostly singles because back then 6-pack boxes like you see now weren't as frequent because it was still very poor times. People would buy it individually. And even back then, people were buying them to put in their lunch pails or lunch bags at work. It was a known tradition in Northern New Brunswick back in the day to have the metal, work lunch boxes, for the mill and Dalhousie, the mill and batters, lumberjacks to have a Joe Louis built in. Because one thing about Joe Louis was not only tasty, it would rarely go bad because the amount of quality in the product and the trans fat, it wasn't going to last forever, but it was like a hostess and the calories are enough in there to give the person who's eating it, be it at school or college or at work, enough energy. And like I said, very tasty. A Vachon cake has a very, very distinctive taste. It basically tastes like something that you would make yourself or want to taste. And it's good chilled. It's good with like soft drinks like Pepsi or Crush. Not with Coke for some reason, but Pepsi and a Vachon. is a very strong combination. And if you didn't like the JosLouis, again, you had the flaky, you had the caramel, you had the May West, different stuff. But by 1938 was a big transition in the company. Joseph Sr. passed away at the age of 70, and Rosanna and her sons took charge of the business and modernized the bakery. Now, as the Second World War years continue, by 1940 they had 125 employees and 30 trucks. And I think this was a good decision. He stopped making bread and focused on producing cakes. Now, when the military demand picked up by the Second World War, it was supplying cakes in the military, including bases in Vancouver, Halifax, and Nanaimo, BC, and across in England, because a lot of the Canadian expats that were fighting over there loved their Vachon, and it was a good morale booster. My uncle Chester Doucet, he fought overseas. He said Vachons were a very, very in demand commodity, especially in the mess halls, because you didn't have to cook, and if you wanted a quick dessert, the quality was there. Now, by 1945, Rosanna retired from the company, and she sold the company to her sons Benoit, Paul, Emily, and Joseph. Now, by 1947, the product line had expanded to 110, and you had 250 people, and the fleet had doubled from 1940. Now, by 1950, with the modern post Second World War, they set up their own research laboratory, which is very commonplace about new products and quality. And they also hired a chemist. By 52, the company had grown to 350 people and 125 trucks. This again, the post-war demand. Um, Between 60 and 69, little name change. It became from J. Vachon et Fils to Vachon Incorporated, and by 1968 they were literally Canada-wide, where their big move on the West Coast, of course, with the Greater Vancouver market, which had a big demand. Now, in this time of transition for the company, they were started looking at other pastry companies across Quebec to buy out. And the first one was Lido Biscuits of Saint Lambert, Quebec, a well-known community for producing great food through the years. And at the time, they expanded their workforce to 1,200 employees, one of the biggest employers and food employers in Quebec at the time, with 425 vehicles in their fleet. Now, in 1970, the Mouvement Desjardins, which was a business conglomerate, purchased 83% of the company, and in 72, they bought out one of their major competitors, which is Vachon, and it changed its name to Complexe Alimentaire Vachon, which basically means multiple food Vachon. By 74, it expanded again, took over the Grenache facility in Saint Denis, Quebec, and by 77, another change again, business changes all the time. They became Groupe Alimentaire Vachon in 76 and changed their name to Culinal. Now, in 1979, this is something that was rumored for years because the product line had expanded, but they couldn't really produce any more new product, but they were looking at their competitors and see where they can expand their base. Now, 1979, a great company called Stewart, which had made the popular May West for a number of years, were bought out by Vachon, and the May West brand basically merged with the JosLouis brands, and the May West had been around since 1932. So the white cake fans, because the Vachon and some of the others were caramel and pastries, but the white cake fans were brought in, and that really moved up their market line quite significantly. Now, in 1980, they hit a new level, and the six packs that were producing became more and more popular. By 1980, it had the biggest production line for flaky pastries, which were very, very popular. And they were producing, get this, 30,000 an hour. 30,000 flaky pastries an hour. That's nearly 375,000 cakes in a 12-hour shift. Nearly 750,000 in a day. One day, 750,000. If a 4 pack was going for $1.25, you can do the math. They were getting very profitable. Now, by 1983, they hit another milestone. Their 10 billion cake in 1983 was produced. And I can tell you, I ate a few of them. I didn't eat a billion, but now by 1993, they were getting a little bit more corporate. And Culinar decided to purchase the Hostess banner in Canada. We're not talking the chips, we're talking about the cakes. And the brand, expanded again, major growth in Ontario and Western Canada. Now, in I think 93 or 94, the family home became kind of a museum or interpretation center, and it basically the legend continues. Now, at the time, if I'm not mistaken, he said on average most Maritimers ate at least one vachon, 70% of the population one vachon a week. And why they said that, there's several million people in the Maritimes, but some people would eat one or two or three or four or a 6 pack a week or feed them to their kids. Like back in the day with the poor families, the Vachon Cakes was a check treat and it would go quite fast. So I would expect millions and millions and millions of Maritimers over the age of 30, not as popular now, but have had a Vachon Cake. So we're talking the grand majority of Maritimers that have enjoyed it. Now, with Saputo being a big food company in the late 90s, early 2000s, you know something was going on. They decided to buy out Vachon in '99, but they kept their original logo, history, and culture. Now, big movements as well in the 2000s, because 2006, because of the change in dietary thing, they decided to eliminate or reduce most of the trans fats in their products, which was kind of a bummer because the trans fats kind of made it. But in 2009, they started getting into the frozen cake line, which basically was very, very tasty. Not as popular as the cakes, but still not too bad. And since over the years, they've redesigned some of the boxes, some of the what do you call the movements. Like JosLouis has changed a little bit over the years from the traditional kind of round black uh, box to was what's there more kid friendly in the 80s and 90s, but they try to stay traditional most times, even though there's been a lot of corporate changes. Now, since 2015, Saputo decided to sell it out and is now being owned by Canada Bread. But something I want to also mention as well, they were well known towards the last 20 or 30 years for their half sizes, like the Half Moon, the Half May West, stuff like that. So it could be, like I said, it could be work related, snack related, whatever. The only thing they haven't started, and a lot of people wonder about this, how come there's never been a Vachon ice cream, where the flavors of Vachon would be brought into the ice cream realm? But it's not like a Snickers bar or Mars or whatever Oreo. The Vachon cake, each one is kind of unique. It's not basically the same taste all the time. But what some people do, they break the Vachon cake, like I talked to JosLouis, delete the interior first and eat the calcified or sugar frosting around the side. And like I said, if you back in the day, it was a pack of hockey or baseball or football cards, Vachon cake and a Pepsi. And Vachon cakes have already been economical. I think now for a 6 pack of Vachon, you're looking at anywhere from 250 to $4, which still is a great value because you're looking at 60 cents Canadian, or which is 45 cents American for a snack cake. That's still pretty tremendous. But their product placement in most grocery stores, you have most of the pastry aisle or like the pre-packed, the package aisle. The solars are good. I remember at Jack River School in the 70s, you would sell count boxes of 24 or 36. You could buy them individually in the and oh yeah, I have to say the rosettes, the cupcakes with the very beautiful top frosting. But like I said, people have attempted to mimic the Vachon cakes through the years, and I don't think there's anybody that I've ever dealt with can even repeat because it's so unique and the process that the Vachons had developed. similar to I don't know how we would call it. If you would expect a regular medium-sized bake tray in the oven and multiply that by literally a million times a day for one product. Some are square for the flaky, and the billet log too. That's another unique, almost like a rolled up version of I don't know what you would call it, a strawberry cake. But like I said, I'm a diabetic, and the reason I am a diabetic is not because of Vachon cakes, but I can tell you, if you watch your diet, if you watch your sugars, it doesn't hurt to treat yourself to Vachon cake. If you never tried one, here's the deal. Listen to this podcast. Contact me on Hotmail. If you don't, if you try Vachon cakes and didn't like it, you let me know, and I will replace your money. I am so positive that if you never tried a Vachon before, you try it. I'm so positive you're going to like it. I think you're not going to contact me and said you're wrong. It was disgusting or whatever. Vachon was about family. Vachon was about the French food experience from Quebec and the Maritimes. It's about Canada. When I used to travel a lot in different parts of the states, not seeing a Vachon on the shelves, I knew it wasn't home. And when I used to go to Massachusetts a lot and different parts, Maine and stuff, was as soon as I come home and I saw that Vachon box in the Sobeys or Savesy or whatever it was, I knew it was home again. And what's great about Vachon, they also created one of the most distinctive hockey card sets of the 1990s. The two what do you call it, two card panels of the Canadian hockey teams, and it still stands out. But the tradition of Stewart, the tradition of all the Quebec food companies he bought out, still isn't there at Vachon. And basically, I know Saputo has been criticized in Canada Bread for their distribution on Vachon and certain things, but Vachon is still around, and the customers are very, very loyal. And with the stressful situation that we've had the last few weeks, may I recommend if you feel stressed out, go get a box of Vachon, treat yourself, get a JosLouis, and just sit back, watch your favorite show, and just relax with a May West or a JosLouis or a caramel or a rosette. I don't think you're gonna lose any sleep by having a Vachon. Maybe you'd sleep a little bit sounder. I would if I could. You know what that song said? If I could buy the world a Coke and keep them company. If I had the money right now, I'd buy the whole world that stress out at least their favorite Vachon cake because I believe in the product so much. I wouldn't be doing a 20-minute podcast on a food company that I don't own stock in unless I could recommend Vachon cakes. So on our last Sunday in March 2020. We're waiting for all the checks to come in federally, provincially, state over the next few days, so a lot of people won't be bankrupt. And you know, take the check and treat yourself. Like I said, buy a Vachon cake. You know, it's, put it this way: there should be a commercial. If you're stressed, break plastic. Vachon cakes. Have a good day. Bye.